Howdy, I'm Brian. Got a little video. I've made a new purchase here. Been looking for an SLR camera. I thought I needed a bigger sensor than I have on my little P7000 Nikon. That P7000 is a great camera, by the way. You can pick one of those up because the 7100 came out, as long as they have. You pick those up for about 300 bucks, even less than that, and man, is that a good camera for the money. Was designed for the professional market, for a pro to stuff in his bag. So you're going to get features on that camera that is going to blow away even a D7000. The exposure bracketing, I get 5 exposure brackets on it. All kinds of features I'm not going to get into now, but sharp lens is tack sharp. It's equivalent of 18 to 200 millimeter lens, or excuse me, 28 to 200 millimeter lens in 35 mil format. So it's got a great zoom. It's sharp throughout its range. It's an excellent camera to shoot with. Anyway, I thought I needed a bigger sensor, and I didn't understand. Nobody's bothered to mention in their videos, so I'm going to mention it right now. My P7000 has a 4:3 aspect ratio. 4:3 aspect ratio will directly print and fit into standard frames at 11 by 14, 8 by 10, 11 by 14, 16 by 20. You can go buy, pretty inexpensive frames and stuff, and you can even buy pre-made mats if you want to at that size. When you go to this APS-C sensor in this camera, for some unknown reason, the brilliant guys that designed these cameras changed the ratio, the aspect ratio to 3:3:3:2, from 4:3 to 3:2. So basically your prints you make straight off the sensor of this camera, basically they're not going to fit in a frame. You can't print it in a standard print format or size. So basically what you got to do is crop it, which means throw away part of the image. And that's basically, I got a 16 megapixels and I crop about 4 meg off and throw them in the trash. So I'm back to like a 12 megapixel, I guess. I don't know, but I can't imagine why anybody would design a camera. I could see using it for video, but not for, I don't understand why you'd make one to take pictures with. It will print pictures that will go in a frame, not go in a frame, but they won't go in a frame, a standard frame, no matter what you do. But some labs will print in native format sizes that you don't have to crop. There's like a 12 by 18, something like that. Don't quote me on that, and there's a size that's bigger than that, like a 16 by 26 or 28. I don't know, something. But they're non-standard. You're not going to get a frame. There's no frames out there that's going to fit them, so you're going to spend a bunch of money getting a custom-made mat to stick it in some other frame that's probably oversized. Or you could have a custom-made frame for $100 a pop, but whatever. It's the stupidest thing I ever saw. And if I would have known this, I would have never bought one of these APS-C size sensors. I would have gone with the Olympus 4:3 format, or I think Panasonic also has a 4:3 sensor. And I would imagine probably some of the pro level Nikons probably don't have that problem. I don't know that for a fact, but I'm assuming they're a different format. And maybe that was the whole idea is, if you don't buy a pro body, we're going to shoot you in the foot, so you got to hobble around, make you uncomfortable. That's how I feel when I look, with the features that they've left out of the firmware. This camera there's no reason why this camera shouldn't do 7 exposure bracketing. The hardware is all they did, they emit it from the firmware code. They just don't put the firmware code in there for it, so you don't get the feature. And then that's the way they try to control you and bump you up into more expensive cameras. Pretty annoying. Here again, I was looking at that Olympus OM5. If I was buying the camera today instead of last week when I bought this one, I took Kai and Albie from Digital Rev TV. I took Kai's advice. Albie's standing there with this camera and a freaking Canon in this hand doing this, and she says, I like this one, and Kai says, nope, just buy the Nikon. It's Nikon, by the way, but Nikon. He says, buy the Nikon. So I went out and bought the Nikon. I did what he said. And so that's how I got stuck with this puppy, but I'm just kidding. I enjoy his videos a lot. I'm just poking some fun at him. It's 16 megapixels. Anyway, let's move on. Camera's okay. It has 3 exposure bracketing. I take a lot of HDR photos. Called 2 Nikon support techs because I couldn't get it to work. Both of them told me, oh well, it won't shoot continuous. You know, it won't shoot automatic in a sequence. You have to trigger the shutter 3 times to take the 3 exposures. And I said, oh, okay, fine, good, because I'm going to send this back to you. That's good, because I don't want it. I've had enough. Between the APS-C size sensor being the wrong aspect ratio to print prints off of, and then they tell me one of the main criteria for buying this was it had minimal exposure bracketing, so I went ahead and settled for it because I didn't want to go up to a $2,000 body or whatever it would have took to get a higher exposure bracketing value. But anyway, one gal put me on hold twice for 15 minutes, and then the third time she puts me on hold because I wasn't taking no for an answer. And I wanted her to talk to a support level above her and find out how to do it, or what, before I sent the camera back. And eventually I was on hold, and then she just hung up after I'd been on talking to her for 40 minutes. Never did get an answer, and the thing just disconnected me. So I called back and got another tech, and went on hold with him, argued with him about it for a while, and he went on hold to check with these bosses, or the upper support. He was gone like 15 minutes. He comes back, he says, no, that camera won't do automatic sequence of 3 exposures. He said, and so I said, well, you know what, I'm not going to, it says, on your site it does 3 exposure auto exposure bracketing. And I expect it to shoot in a sequence, because if I got to do it manually, I'm going to get ghosting in all my HDR shots, ghosting that I don't need to have, you know what I mean? Plus, if you got to trigger it 3 times, you got more camera, more chance. You want those shots you take as close together as possible. So, anyway, so he disappeared again. He goes, well, let me see what else, let me figure out what we can. So anyway, he goes on hold, puts me on hold again. Gone 10 or 15 minutes. And then in the meantime, now this has been over an hour I've been on the phone with Nikon. The whole time I'm fiddling with the camera, I'm waiting on hold. And luckily I found out how to make the camera shoot the way that I wanted it to shoot. And they told me it wouldn't do that. 2 different reps told me it would not shoot continuous sequence. The way to get this camera to shoot 3 auto exposure brackets in one sequence, you have to use the 10-second self-timer. And it will reset after each time you shoot a bracket. You have to reset the self-timer every time. If you don't, it'll go right back to the other mode of triggering, and it won't work. Which is kind of odd, because that's what happened to me. I accidentally got it to work once by hitting that, and then I couldn't get it to work again. I didn't know why it worked, and I was fiddling around, and I finally figured out, what. Anyhow, so it's scary. As little experience I have with cameras, that I've only had this 4 or 5 days. I actually only had it 1 day when I had this, but I end up knowing more about the camera than the Nikon reps. That's spooky. It really is. And especially if they tell people stuff. I would have returned this camera based on that information. I really would have. Anyway, I get very good results with it now. The thing was designed for consumer market, so the auto and scene modes, they have tweaked pretty good, and you get pretty good images. Now, if you want to go to the pro route, or more pro type, or for whatever reason, probably because they prefer you bought the D7000, they seem to have not quite got the picture controls right on it. And you go into aperture mode or whatever, or shutter mode, you're going to get washed out exposures. They're overexposed. The colors look terrible. They're like, you know, really bland. They look awful, you know. And here again, I was like, I'm sending this damn thing back. So anyway, so I thought, well, you know, maybe I can tweak those picture controls. Maybe I can work around what they've done to the firmware and fix those images so they look right. And it was pretty simple. I sharpened. I have a very sharp lens here, so I can get away with +4 on sharpening. If you have a 18-55 or any other lens, I'd kick the sharpening up to +6, and then bump the saturation up 1 notch. And you won't believe the difference it makes in your pictures. You won't believe it came out of the same camera, but that's the solution to that problem. And now I get really good. The second part of this review I want to do, everybody's pretty much covered the buttons and everything. If you watch Jared Poland and Kai and them, they've all got their videos, and I watch all those guys. They're great. They've gone through the buttons and everything pretty much. And Kai's exposures, if you watch his video on this camera, the one where he's walking around street shooting, his exposures are overexposed in that. And that's why, you know, a lot of these cameras, I just wasn't happy, and that's why it took me so long to decide what to do. If I was buying one today, though, I would get a 4x3 format sensor, regardless of what I had to do to get it. I would not settle for a 3:2 sensor, because I want to put mine in prints. I want to put it in standard frames, standard print sizes. So that's really important for me. I'm going to live with trying to crop this off and throwing half my megabits down the trash. They stuck me on this one. I won't ever buy this format again, though, when I buy another camera. I just don't want to go through the hassle of returning this. I've got it all. I've got it set up. I've learned how to use it pretty much. The HDR mode sucks on it. I don't even see any difference in the HDR to normal. Very little difference. Actually, usually prefer, from what I've seen, the regular exposure over what the HDR does to it. But I process all my HDRs outside the camera. So the second part of this review, probably the most important part, because there's no other YouTube videos on this, is I bought body only. I did not want the 18-55 lens. I wasn't happy with the quality I saw on most of the examples I was able to get. One problem is YouTube doesn't do a very good job of showing photos anyway. You lose a lot of quality when you do it and see the videos. But take my word for it, I'm pretty spoiled from that P7000. That thing is tack sharp all the way from its 28 to 200 range. That thing is sharp as a tack. So I was looking at spending $2,500 in pro lenses to get the same quality on an SLR body as I was getting with that $300 P7000. Not to mention all the features that are missing off of this camera. I can control remote flashes and everything with that little P7000. Can't do it with this. You know, and it goes on and on and on. But it is what it is. So I'm getting really good images out of the camera now, though, and that's the main thing. This lens is critical. From what I've seen, I've done a lot of research on this stuff. And this lens, as far as I'm concerned, is the best lens Nikon makes for the price. And I mean absolutely the best. They do have a little prime lens. It's a pretty good deal. It's a couple $100. I can't remember what, 35 1.8 or something like that. I might get a prime lens to do portraits or whatever, or maybe, I don't know, but I kind of like the zooms. Helps you compose and everything, you know. But this is a 18 to 70 millimeter. It's a AFS DX IF, which means internal focusing mechanism, and ED for the dispersion, high dispersion glass. It's got 3 coated elements in it, which is very good. One aspherical element, 3 coated ED coated elements. Most of the good lenses under 1,000 only have 1 coated element. But this is the best lens. They don't build this lens new anymore, but for the money, you can buy them for less than $500. I bought mine for less than $300. and it's tack sharp. It is tack sharp. It is just stunningly sharp. It's pro quality. So basically, get you one of these lenses, these 18 to 70s. I think the 18 to 105 is a pretty good lens too, but this is superior in sharpness. It has a very quiet focusing motor. It's very quick to focus. There's a couple videos out on YouTube about showing how quick it focuses, and it's basically totally silent. You can't hear it focus at all. I've done a lot of research on this lens. Like I say, you're going to have to buy a refurb or a used one, and that's what I did. This is a like new minus. I bought it from KEH Photo. I was going to return it because when I first got it, I didn't have the body yet, so I got antsy and I couldn't shoot any pictures with it. But on this particular example of this lens, you probably can't see this, but when I grab the end and push right here, the barrel, the internal mechanism, the barrels that move in and out of the lens and the main body of the lens, the barrel, this thing jiggles. It's not tight, it jiggles a little bit. If you grab it and move it, the whole mechanism wobbles. That concerned me, and I was going to send it back because of that, which would be justified. I talked to Nikon, they said no, it shouldn't wobble. I'll give you an example though. I read 10 reviews out on Amazon.com on this lens. 8 of those 10 complained of the wobble in the lens, the jiggle. So it is characteristic of this particular lens. I think some of them do it worse than others, but the bottom line is it doesn't affect picture quality. This thing is sharp as a tack. I mean, it focuses sharp and provides sharp results, very sharp. So I've decided to keep it because image quality is number one with me. That trumps everything else. And so with this lens and body now, I'm getting very sharp images, possibly even superior to my P7000, probably a little superior. And I haven't printed any yet, and I tried to enlarge. And like I said, I'm not looking forward to that experience because of the non-standard size. And frankly, it pisses me off that I got to crop the photo, throw away 30% of the pixels I paid for. It doesn't make sense to me. It's stupid. And the engineers that designed that APS-C sensor, stupid. S-T-U-P-I-D. Stupid. Anyway, for some reason, everybody's bought the damn things. I don't understand why anybody would crop photos like that, unless I'm missing something. And if I am, one of you guys knows a way I can solve this problem with this aspect ratio and printing standard prints, please let me know, because I'd be overjoyed to hear about it. Anyway, this lens is an excellent lens. It's the best lens Nikon makes for the money. For under $600 or $800, maybe $1,000, this 18 to 70 is very good lens, very good. For overall use, and then I'll probably buy a 55 to 200, the lower quality lens, because I don't shoot a lot of sports or nature where I need the high magnification. And I don't like carrying around all that glass, so I'll probably get a 15 to 200. It'll probably only be on the camera less than 10% of the time. This is the main lens that will stay attached on here all the time. And the other problems I've seen in reviews, because I did do a lot of research, some of these lenses do accumulate dust in them from the zooming in and out, maybe because of that jiggle. I have a theory. The way that jiggles, and yet it still focuses and everything right. I have a theory that this lens was supposed to be waterproof. The original design, this is a story, this is not fact, but I have a suspicion that the original design engineer on this lens intended for it to be waterproof. There's probably an O-ring or something in there that is not right, or is not in there at all, that's supposed to weather seal. And I think that's why it jiggles a little bit. That O-ring's not in there, that he originally intended to be in there. That's a guess, but my guesses are usually pretty good. So, anyway, I was going to return the lens, but I'm not now because I get such good results with it. I'm not turning loose of it. And if the thing goes bad a year from now, or gets dust in it, or the other problem people complain about is some of them get a loose screw in there and it jams the zoom. It jams it. And if I have a problem, you know, I got about $265 in this lens. I'll send this in to get it refurbed and buy a new one. You know what I mean? As long as I'm getting sharp results, I'm pretty easy to get along with. And so I'm going to keep these two. This is the D5100. A lot of reviews out there on the camera. Pretty good. I'm not impressed with the feature set for the money I spent. You know, because I bought that P7000 and it's a pro camera. I was a little disappointed in the features. And you know what? The hardware's, they could easily give me 5 exposure bracketing, 7 exposure bracketing. They've already, you know, it's just the code. It's just the code and the firmware they put in the camera. It don't cost them any money or nothing, but they want to force you up into the more expensive cameras. And it ticks me off that they're monkeying around with the firmware. And like I said, even on the ape and the modes that are not consumer-based modes, the manual aperture, shutter, and program modes, I think they've you know, kind of jacked around with the picture controls to where you don't get images. Once you go into those pro-type modes, you don't get the images that you'd like to get. They're pretty disappointing. So here again, you'd be thinking once you wanted to go out of the auto and the scene modes, your colors are all washed out, they're overexposed. One of Kai's videos, like I said, has got some of his examples of street shots he does out there. They look washed out to me and overexposed, and that's what I was getting out of this camera until I tweaked the picture controls. +4 on sharpness to +6 on sharpness, and bump the saturation up 1 notch. That's set with the standard, modifying the standard control. There's standard, Vivid, and all that different control. You go out in the standard one and bump it up like that, and that'll straighten out your pictures. Put a good sharp lens on it like this lens, and you've got a pretty good camera. This camera's giving me pro results now. And I picked this, I actually picked the body up on sale because I think they're coming out with the 5200 here very shortly. So the lens, I could highly recommend. Hopefully it'll last quite a while for me. If not, I'll get another one. Because for the money, you can't beat it in the Nikon line. So, but this is a pretty good combination now for pro quality results. I've got 600 in the body. It was on sale, $596 B&H photo, and I've got 265 in the lens from KEH photo. It's a like new minus. So I've got what is that? I've got $865 in it as it sits, and I'm getting pro level results. I'll try to tack a few pictures on to the end of this video. I haven't taken a whole lot of photos. I've taken, but I only got some that I'd put out here that are good enough quality. Some of the stuff really has just been shooting around, just seeing what I get. Not really stuff I'd want to post on YouTube, but I'll put 4 or 5 photos out there that look pretty decent in the short time I've had it. Like I said, just take my word for it. I am getting pro level results out of this camera now, paired with this lens. So, not a bad little matchup. And I suppose if you put this 18-70 on a 3200 camera or a 5200 that should be coming out soon, you'll probably be very happy with that. If you got to crop your picture and throw half the megapixels away, you know, hey, the more megapixels the better. But that's going to conclude my review. Initially thought I was going to return both these items, but I've worked around the issues and problems I had with both. The images are so sharp and the focus motor is so quiet on this lens, even though the barrel jiggles a little. So what? As long as I get good images out of it, I don't really care. It can jiggle its little ass off, I don't care. And Good little combination. Thanks for watching my review. Hope it was helpful. Again, I think the best piece of information in this whole video is this lens right here. It's the best lens Nikon makes for the money as far as image quality goes. It's the 18-70 AFS DX ED IF. Thank you for watching.